In this video, we're going to take a look at placing components, both hosted and non-hosted components. First off, be aware that the category and family control the behavior of an element and how it can be placed. It also controls the parameters that are available. Let's take a look at some examples. To begin, on the Architecture ribbon, in the Build panel, I'll click Place a Component, and then in the Type selector, I'll select one of the desk types. Now, you can see a desk component underneath the cursor in the drawing area. And if you look in the status bar, it says click to place a free instance. So I can simply click anywhere to place a desk. But before you place a component, you should check the parameters in the Properties palette. And in this case, we have a level. And so I'm at level 1, which is where I want to place it. That's the level of the view. And then there's an elevation from level and host parameter, but those are unavailable. So I can simply click anywhere and I can place it at level 1, right at level 1. So I'll click outside of this little building here. And then when I move inside the building, move the cursor that is, you can see the boundary highlights. And that's actually the floor that is highlighting. And what that means is that the floor will become the host of the desk. So I will click to place it, and then I'm going to click Modify to end the command. Now, not to be confusing, but this desk is an unhosted component. And so what that means is that it does not have to have a host element for it to be placed. Now, when I select one of the desks, you can see that it has a host parameter, but it doesn't necessarily have to have a host element. So in this case, the desk is hosted to level 1 outside of the building, and then inside the building, it's hosted to the floor. But in a minute, we'll see why this is an unhosted component and then what a hosted component is, and that'll kind of help clear that up a bit. But before we do that, let's place one more component. On the Systems ribbon, in the HVAC panel, I'm going to click Air Terminal. And since this is a generic example and we're placing elements of various categories, I'm going to change the elevation from level to 3 feet, which is not realistic, but just hang with me for this example. So once again, we have a level, elevation from level, host, and then offset from host. But this time the elevation from level parameter is available, so I can change that. And so since I'm placing an air terminal, that is available. And now I'm going to click a couple places here inside the building, and then I'll also click a couple places out here outside the building as well. And then I'll click Modify to end the command. Once again, I can select an air terminal outside the building and then inside and see that the host parameter is different. But once again, these are unhosted components. But they do have a host parameter, and so let's see how that comes into play. I'm going to open the south elevation view, and then I'm going to select this wall, and in the view control bar, I'm going to use the temporary hide isolate tools, and I'm going to select hide element. That way we can see the desk and air terminals inside the building and outside the building. So right now they're the same, but when I select this floor, and in the Properties palette, I'm going to change the height offset from level to, let's change it to 2 feet. And when I do, you can see the air terminals and the desk moves up with the floor. And the reason is because the host parameter for those components is the floor. Whereas if we look outside the building, the host parameter is the levels. Now if I select that floor, you can see that the level is set to level 1, and so that's what's driving the floor, and then the floor is being used to control the desk and the air terminals, if you will. So that's placing components. So those are unhosted components. We can click anywhere, and then they have a host parameter, and then the elevation of that host will also control the elevation of that component. And so that's something that you want to pay attention to. And then once again, depending on the category, the elevation from level may or may not be available. All right, I'm going to switch back to the level 1 floor plan view. And you may be wondering, how are those unhosted components? What's a hosted component then? So if we look at a hosted component, some good examples are doors and windows. So if I activate the door tool, now when I move into the drawing area, you can see a cannot place symbol. And then the tooltip says, and then also if it goes away, you can look in the status bar. It says click on wall to place door. So a door must be hosted in a wall. It's a wall hosted component. And when I hover the cursor over a wall, you can see the door. And I can click in a wall to place a door. And also an opening is cut in the wall when the door is placed. I'll click modify and then activate the window tool, and we see something very similar when I click on a wall to place a window. So doors and windows are hosted components. They have to be hosted in that host component, which is a wall. But there's several types of hosted components. And let's take a look at another one. And this time I'm going to open up the level 1 ceiling plan view so we can see our ceiling here. And then on the systems ribbon in the electrical panel, I'm going to click lighting fixture. And when I select one of the troffer types, and that's really all that's available in this project, but you can see a placement panel in the contextual ribbon. Now, when we are placing doors and windows, there was not a placement panel, but in this case there is. And so my point here is that there are multiple variations of hosted components. So you have doors and windows which can only be hosted in walls, or I should restate that. If that's the way, as long as they were created as a wall-hosted family, then they can only be placed in walls. And this lighting fixture was created as a face-based family. And so what that means is it can be placed on multiple faces. And we get this placement panel here in the contextual ribbon. So we can place it on a vertical face, we can place it on any face, or we can place it on a work plane. And so we have those 3 options there. So for example, I'll select place on face, and once again we have that cannot place symbol, but when I move it over a face, which in this case is a ceiling, then I can click to place it in the ceiling. And I'll simply place it anywhere. I can't align it with 2 ceiling grids. I can do my best to match it up there, but you can only see it snap to 1. But we'll cover that more later. But in this case, we are dealing with a face-based family, and we can tell that by that placement panel in the contextual ribbon. I'll click modify to end the command, and then I'll select one of those lighting fixtures. And once again, we can see some parameters here in the properties palette. We have a schedule level, an elevation from level, and a host. And in this case, the elevation from level parameter is unavailable, as well as the host, because that's being controlled by the host component, which is the ceiling. All right, I'll go back to the level 1 floor plan view, and I think that's good enough for now. So just to summarize there's both hosted and unhosted components in Revit, with the main differentiation there being that a hosted component must have a host element for it to be placed, whereas an unhosted element can be placed anywhere and just have a level as a reference there to place it at the very minimum. Howdy! Thanks for watching. If you'd like more free content from Click to BIM, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have affordable subscription options at click2bim.com, where you can access all of our videos. We also have an amazing search feature that allows you to search through every single word in all of our videos to help you quickly find the answers to your questions.